Well, I'm the Media Whiz, because one art form wasn't enough. Let's talk about Powerpuff Girls. Because it's not Ed Nettie this time. And I promise we're not going to talk about the live-action Powerpuff Girls, and way to go, I just did, I guess, didn't I? As of now, the only thing connected to this franchise I've reviewed was the movie. I still stand by my review when I said that I really liked it. Is it perfect? No. Did I enjoy it as a whole? Yes. I thought the animation was great, the story was pretty good, and I felt the writing was captured perfectly by the original show's staff. But that was just one of many things that came out of this show. Since it was Cartoon Network's first breakout series, there were tons of things made to capitalize on the name. And of course, that includes video games. Like Ed, Nettie, there were a couple of different games made out of this show. From some mobile games, a couple of slots in Cartoon Network crossovers like racing games and minigame collections, some games on the Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Color, and a couple of console-based games, such as Relish Rampage on the GameCube and PlayStation 2, which has a reputation of, okay, yeah, if it's really that bad, this might be a future Media Whiz review candidate. However, we're going to be taking a step backwards in terms of console generation, and we're talking about a game on the Nintendo 64, Powerpuff Girls Chemical Extraction. First of all, can we appreciate that there's a game based on the show on the N64, when the people who made the show made it no secret that they loved the console?
Right when we started the show, the Nintendo 64 came out, and everybody on the crew was playing Legend of Zelda, myself included. So it got to the point where we had a production meeting because some of the guys were late on their boards, and Gendy and I sat down with everybody, and I was like, all right, what level is everyone on in Zelda? Who's almost finished?
This game was developed by Blam Entertainment, who are responsible for a bunch of other cartoon-based games. If it wasn't THQ, these guys had cartoon-based games on lock. The game was released in 2001 for both Nintendo 64 and PlayStation, and was met with generally negative reviews upon its release. Similar to another cartoon-based game I reviewed the N64 version of, South Park.
You tripped me, seriously.
But in fairness to this game, I've actually heard people say they liked South Park on N64. At the time of making this review, I have not heard that many people praise either the N64 or PlayStation version of this game. But is the bad press really warranted? Let's find out. This is Powerpuff Girls Chemical Extraction on N64. The plot of the game begins with this text that is very difficult to read. What you need to know is that the girls are baking a pie, and they add Chemical X into the mix. As they put it on the windowsill to cool, Mojo Jojo steals the pie and eats it with his fellow villains. So now the girls have to, quote, beat the Chemical X out of them, unquote. Yeah, well, that's what you get for putting something important like Chemical X into a pie. I mean, can you imagine if they were that reckless with the stuff in the show? I mean, aside from the time they used it to create Bunny, or the time they gave it to Dick Hardley, or when they gave it to Mojo in the movie. You know, at this point, I think the professor should start investing in a superpowered child-proof locked cabinet. And here's a fun fact. The N64 version has this opening with text, whereas the PlayStation version actually has cutscenes and dialogue and everything, complete with the same voice actors from the show. You see, this is why people started shifting towards PlayStation. They had more content with stuff like this. Right off the bat, you'll notice the graphics are actually not that bad. It's still an N64 game, don't get me wrong, but compared to how they put Ed, Nettie into a 3D environment, you could certainly do far worse. You're given a story mode and a simulator mode. Simulator mode is basically two-player mode, and for some reason, only one person can pick a Powerpuff. Yeah, two people can select villains, but only one person can select a Powerpuff Girl. I guess they didn't want to have it that the girls were fighting each other, but they've done it before in the show. The only other difference from this and the main game is that the villains can fly every so often in these stages. Wait, shouldn't that actually be a part of the main game, since they now have powers from Chemical X? From here, you play as the three girls in their own separate campaigns in a series of different locations taking on the following villains: Billy, Sedusa, Princess, Fuzzy, Ace, Mojo, and the story mode ends with a final boss battle against the devil himself, him. And when I say separate campaign, I mean the exact same thing 3 times. Yeah, these levels are exactly the same. You just play as different Powerpuffs each campaign. You fight against the villains in 2 rounds that usually go under 10 minutes. You don't even get any special moves for these campaigns. I mean, come on, you could have added special moves to differentiate these 3 characters. You could have had it that Blossom has Frost Breath, and Buttercup has more strength in her hitting moves, and Bubbles could speak Spanish, I don't know. They don't even shuffle the villains around in these campaigns. It's the same sequence of villains every time. I mean, if you were going to do it like this, you might as well have had it that you play as certain girls in certain levels. You You want to know another annoying thing about this game? The music. Every level, each of the campaigns, even on the menu screens, it's the same variation of the theme song. It probably would have been nice to hear once in a while, but not for the whole game. Finally, let's move on to the most important thing, the controls. I'd like to file this game into the button masher category. Half the time, if you can land any kind of hit, you're just going to be hitting the B button in the general area around there. You're given a kick attack and a hit attack, both of which I just spammed all throughout my playthrough of this. There's apparently a way to fly, like some kind of homing attack, but it didn't work on my end. Either my copy has a glitch or my controller was a bit off. There's also a way to block with the Z button, but it works like crap. Same thing goes for the throwing function. The villains can throw things quite easily, but when you throw, it never really locks onto target just right. There's also a special move I didn't even get to try while playing this, but apparently there's some kind of mini explosion ground pound move you can do with the A and Z button. Weirdly enough, there's also a way to shoot laser eyes, but again, I never got to try that while I was playing. Like I said, I was button mashing my way through this entire game, level to level. Even if I was almost out of life, once you get these enemies into a corner, you can just spam the hit and kick attacks and they'll go down pretty easily. Just make sure you grab the Chemical X beakers that literally fall out of them. I swear, these are some of the easiest villains to take out once you just box them in. Mojo is the second to last, and he goes down like nothing. Even the final boss level with him is quite easy, just like the rest of the game. I'm not asking for a devil boss level like in Cuphead, but a little difficulty against the Lord of all Darkness for the final boss would have been kinda nice. I feel a little mean saying this, but this Powerpuff Girls game really sucks. The only bright spot here is the graphics aren't that bad. It is appealing to look at, and the idea of a Powerpuff Girls arena fighter is a good concept for a game. But the music is repetitive, the lack of special moves between characters really sucks, each round is basically the same in terms of fighting mechanics, and the controls barely work half the time. And when they do, you're going to end up with some pretty sore thumbs from all the button mashing you're going to be doing. From what I can tell with the PlayStation version, it's basically the same game, but they actually have cutscenes and voice acting, and certain characters are programmed with certain levels of difficulty. And apparently there's actually different music between levels, and you can actually unlock special abilities between the girls. So that's a good sign, right? Well, I also hear the controls can be incredibly laggy, so while it seems the PlayStation version might be the better of the two, it seems like, in general, Chemical Extraction is just another crappy tie-in game based on one of my favorite shows. Is it worse than Misadventures on GameCube? Well, unlike that game, I could actually get past level 3, so there's that, I guess. Now I'm just left wondering if this is worse than that Powerpuff Girls game on GameCube, because if this was that bad, I'd hate to see how bad that one gets. I'm the Media Wiz, because One Art Forum wasn't enough.